Hello, and welcome back to Eventide Radio. I am your host, Scotty, and with me today are my co-hosts, Robbie and Rob. Sadly, Will is out this week, which sucks, because this week is a sincerely important week. Just this past Tuesday, the Witch Queen expansion for Destiny 2 has dropped, so hopefully you guys have had a chance to jump in there and explore Savathun's throne world and all of those fun goodies that this new expansion has to offer. I know us three have all been playing it. I've been going at a pace than these two because I just finished the legendary campaign last night. But anyways, we've got a lot to talk about with this new expansion. There's so much to get into, and we've only got an hour this week. So what we're going to be doing this week is we are just going to be talking about the first impressions of the campaign, our first impressions of the campaign. So before we get into this, it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into it, I have two disclaimers I need to put out there. So number one, spoiler territory, of course, obviously. Number one, make sure you're done with the main campaign. Obviously, we're going to be talking about major spoilers for the main campaign. And yes, unlike Shadowkeep, there's actual things to spoil this time. And make sure you're also done with the post game. Not all of the post game per se, but we're going to be touching on some stuff, especially the post game quest line. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've beat the campaign. So make sure you're done with that. And if you're done with those two, you should be good to go. But of course, bear in mind, Rob and Robbie have progressed further than I have. But we're going to be talking about some spoilery stuff today. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But if you aren't caught up, make sure you get yourself caught up and then come back later. Number two, the second disclaimer is that we had a very generous man by the name of Nick Whitmire reach out to us and offer us some free codes for Destiny 2, the Witch Queen. So me, Robbie, and Will all received Witch Queen for free from a senior animator at Bungie, who is extremely talented, just did incredible work on this expansion, and was just so generous to give us that. We didn't ask for it. He just, out of the generosity of his own heart, gave it to us. Thank you so much, Nick. And please check him out on Instagram. He's got a lot of cool behind-the-scenes stuff on his Instagram. He does more than just Destiny. He does a lot of cool stuff. And he's a super talented animator. Please check him out. Super nice guy. Super talented. And again, thank you, Nick, for the opportunity to experience this. We appreciate it so much. You have no idea. But yeah, I wanted to make sure everyone knew that. Number one, for legal reasons. Number two, just to make sure that, hey, I don't think it's going to influence our perspective on the game, but just to say, hey, we did get this for free. We didn't pay for it. Rob did, but we didn't pay for it, just in case that influences our perspective on the game. Just bear in mind, even though I think I would pay as much as they would want for it, because it's really good so far. But yeah, anyways, I also just want to iterate that we are not sponsored by Bungie, nor are we affiliated with them in any way. This was just Nick. I had asked him to be on the podcast, and hopefully he's going to come on soon. But I'd been in contact with him, and he just reached out one day and offered that to us. So we're not affiliated in any way. We're not sponsored. It was just Nick being a really good guy. So thank you again, man. Please, guys, go check him out on Instagram. He's got really cool stuff. And without further ado, let's dive in to our first impressions of the Witch Queen campaign. Rob, what in a minute, how would you summarize your thoughts on the legendary campaign to get us started? Go ahead.
It felt. I'm still trying to process everything.
Me too. Trust me.
there were moments where it didn't even feel like Destiny 2 anymore. Like, it felt like its own whole new thing. Like, I would say, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the throne world, but just the expansive size of what there was to explore and all the different locations. And every time I felt like, oh, we've seen everything. It's like, oh, here's a new area. Oh, here's a new area. Oh, now you go into this like what kind of felt like there was a few. I was getting like Dark Soul vibes in a few areas.
Yeah.
Of just kind of like the kind of gothic horror castle-y feel, and there was a place where you go down and it almost feels like hell, where you fight that Ahamkara illusion. Like just some phenomenal set pieces. The campaign, I I think comfortably, I'm willing to say this is probably the best campaign we've gotten like throughout the entire franchise. It had story beats that reminded me of the Taken King, but like the Taken King on steroids. And it was phenomenal. Like just an exceptional piece of like art. I mean, I it seems kind of like weird to call it this, but I do feel like that it was a piece of art and it should be honored and like glorified because it was an excellent piece of work, and good job to Bungie. I mean, it was like amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It definitely has this feeling of scale. Like you were saying, there's just so much to explore. I think one good example of that is in the final ritual mission. You know, that opening encounter with the Lightbearer wizard who's like shielded by those two crystals, and you go
Right.
around like 17 different rooms. It's like this massive encounter that you
Yeah.
play, and you're like all over the fortress. Pretty cool.
Right.
And yeah, there's so many like cool little like exploratory sections and stuff where they have you like do the deep sight thing, and which is cool. I liked that when there's like a break in between those encounters, and you're just kind of allowed to just explore and stuff like that, even if it is kind of on a linear path, but it still feels like you're exploring at least, even though you're in a campaign mission, which was cool. And it, dude, the Ahamkara was insane. I mean, there's so many cool, really neat, like epic set pieces. I think every mission, like they said before this came out, they were like every mission is going to have like this unique special identity, and they were 100% not lying, because every mission has this unique identity, and everything has, you could, tell me the title of the mission, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's the mission where so and so happens, and that it was really cool. It was an awesome experience. Robbie, what'd you think, gameplay wise, of the Legendary campaign?
Well, again, I'm probably the newest one here, right? So I don't have like the whole rose-dyed glasses for Destiny 1 and stuff. But I did play Destiny 1, and I went through, I guess, most of the content except for the raids. And I feel like, okay, maybe this is like a weird comparison, but this is classic WoW for Destiny made right. So it feels like a good return to form in a lot of mechanics and things that people enjoyed from, the history of Destiny in general. And like if you could make Destiny again and have that same feeling of like things are new and we don't know what to expect, and it just felt like a change, because it felt like a change of chapter where like, okay, it was all about Savathûn for like what, 8 years, 9 years. And now it feels like, we're just fighting for this solar system, and there's so much more out there that we have no idea what's going on, and we're about to find out. So it felt like a return to form. I love a lot of the content. I love all those, not just to like RPG elements and MMO elements that I didn't see on the previous campaigns. Like there's even one part where they tell you to kill Tenscorn, collect their helmets, and then go deposit them in like this flower pot thing. And I was like, oh wow, nice, a quest where I gotta go, collect 10 helmets from Scorn. And I thought like, wow, that's so MMO-ish, and I loved it. And they're here and there sprinkled, and it just, it feels great. I think the storytelling, obviously by Bungie, has always been, top notch. So can't complain there. And the game feels good. The guns are great. Everything they do always feels, great, especially on console. And I don't know. Yeah, we can talk about the story more. We can talk about some of the gameplay. I think Void 3.0 was fun. I played it only on 2 characters so far. I'm not in love with the Hunter, but alas, I was never in love with Void Hunter anyway. So, but the Warlock, I don't know. I don't know how to express how happy it makes me. It's been incredibly fun. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite level from the campaign?
Oh yes. So I'm not like you that I don't remember the name, but so there's this one guy in like the pit. I think that's the one that you said that looks like hell, and he looks kind of like the fanatic, but he's not the fanatic. And you gotta
Is it the
kill these
Ghosts mission where you
witches on the
rescue Segura?
sides. Yes,
Yeah.
the Segura
Oh
one,
boy,
right?
that was a
So
rough one.
yeah, exactly, because that was the first one where like we wiped like more than twice. Let's put it that way. And like I get that point of like, and I complained about that earlier, like last week or 2 weeks ago, where yeah, we're supposed to be super strong and kill everything, right? But this one was like, okay, calm down, you know, you can't kill everything. You gotta actually stop trying to nuke things. Just learn the mechanics, enjoy the arena that was created for you, you know, listen to the story, do like it made me stop and be like, okay, so you know, we gotta play this the way it was meant to be played. It's not fun to just melt everything down and you know speed run through it and miss all the scenery, especially like you said, all those places are so massive in scale. Like the game just feels so big. The world feels way bigger than it did before to me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it does.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
So
totally with you.
and that was the first fight where I was like, okay, we gotta, you know, we can't just melt stuff. We gotta learn mechanics and play it well and enjoy how it was programmed to be played, you know, how it was meant to be fought and meant to be won. So I think maybe that's why. 'Cause it was the first one that was like, yeah, slapped me and made me sit back.
Yeah, you know, you're right, because like the one right before it was kind of like the Lightbearer Wizard, where it's just kind of like not really a boss per se, but it's like your first Lightbearer you fight, and et cetera, et cetera. And then they introduce what is like a mini like dungeon-esque mechanics throughout the whole campaign. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
that fight was challenging and pretty exciting. Rob, do you have a favorite campaign mission?
It's still kind of jumbled together. Because like I ran through it the first evening, and just kind of like I did a hard sprint, and to a certain degree, I regret doing that. Like there's kind of this weird balance where it's like as soon as the new content drops, like you want to start grinding your new level. And so it was more about just like let's get through the campaign. Like we watched all the cutscenes, and I certainly tried to take in as much scenery. But the fact of the matter is, we were just trying to rush through it, and um, I need to go back and play individual like levels to get kind of those story beats. Um, I I really actually kind of liked the first level. Um, I don't think it's my favorite, but like each one has just sort of like unique, like you said, like they've got their own like points and what's it like encounters that feel very unique to that particular mission. Um, I definitely don't think Ritual, which is the last level, it's definitely probably not my favorite. Um, I want to say I liked Communion quite a bit as one of the missions. Like they're like but each one just has its own flavor. So like as of right now, I don't think I necessarily have a favorite one. But there are like individual points and parts of some of those levels that did stick out to me that were particularly challenging. And like you said, Robbie, like this is not something that you could just blast through and then kind of like not even look behind because it's like, oh, okay, well, we're just moving to the next thing. Like you actually had to think about what the kind of mechanic was. There was definitely like raid light or dungeon light mechanics throughout the entire campaign, which was I don't think something they've really done before, like invested heavily into the campaign to have those elements, which was an interesting choice. And I think overall for the positive, because I think it forced you to kind of sit there and like take things in and try to interpret what's going on. Um, I would say they have successfully made challenge. This is something that we've been talking about on the podcast off and on for a long time. This felt way more interesting and rewarding than being one shot in a GM Nightfall over and over again, but still felt challenging. So this is proof that they can make enemies and make situations and combat encounters that feel challenging and just that point where you're, pardon my French, clenching your asshole just tight enough so you can complete the challenge, but you're not just like banging your head against the wall because you're just getting one shot by things that are like so far away you can't even like so.
Yeah.
Like it's such a step in the right direction in terms of quality. And I was like someone pointed out on Reddit, like they did this without having champions at all throughout the entire campaign, which is like I was afraid that it was just gonna like the legendary was just gonna be littered with champions, and that it was just gonna be this like struggle just to get like through it. But the struggle was more just like, wow, we can't just be, goofing off. You actually have to put your gamer pants on and work for it. And it was awesome. And it was so rewarding when you finally do complete it.
Yeah, there were
you're right.
Though, but there were also those new Lucent Hive,
right?
Which
and
is so much more fun to fight than champions.
It is, and it's very challenging. And I'm actually, now that you mentioned GMs, I'm concerned about those because let's say you have a bunch of those instead of champions, and you down them, but then one of the fire team has to go up there and squish the ghost, which, by the way, is something I've been enjoying a lot, surprisingly.
It's so much fun.
It's so fun. But now you gotta put yourself out in the open to actually kill the Lucent Hive's ghost, or he'll come back. So I don't know how that's gonna work out for GMs. It might be super risky moves, and we'll have
that's
to
that's
Viz Hunter comes in.
Yeah, I was gonna say an Assassin's Cowl in Viz Hunter is probably gonna be the play because they're gonna have to smoke, go out there, crush it, and then turn invisible again so they can go like retreat. And like that's gonna be because I think they did confirm there are gonna be champion Lucent Hive.
Oh my god!
Or like Guardians, I should say.
Which
terrifies me to think
Sentinel
about.
Knight.
Yeah.
Suppressor nades.
But so they threw suppressor nades, they would throw pulse grenades. Cool. They would throw I think they threw incendiary grenades, the Acolyte hunters did.
I know they throw scatter grenades. They might also throw incendiary grenades. I remember
maybe that's what it was. They were scatter grenades. But so we've only seen 3 so far. Right? There's like a Void Titan equivalent, there's an Arc Wizard equivalent, and
the
then
Solar Hunter.
The Acolyte. Yeah, so we haven't seen like an Arc wielding Acolyte or anything like that yet. So that also leaves me hopeful that we might get more in the future in like maybe future seasons where it's like, oh, now they've learned to use other abilities as well or something like that. So
you just unlocked like a nightmare in my head. You just mentioned an Arc wielding Acolyte, and I'm picturing an Arc Strider like sprinting at you, just like chasing you around the map.
Well, I was waiting for a knight to use like Sentinel or a Thunder Crash, like just come over to me and like panic smash me like that. I was waiting for it. But it's like all of that to say, all of those encounters like felt strategically. Like it wasn't just we're just gonna dump a bunch of enemies and you're just gonna die a bunch of times. Like it never felt like that. It was like they were placed in strategic places where you needed to use the environment to your advantage and like take cover, take pot shots, and then kind of slowly like close the gap. And like you got pretty good at recognizing like their patterns, especially like the ones that throw the shields. You kind of like figure out when they're gonna throw them and when it's safe to like progress. Like there's one spot where I got stuck for a while with Will, where he's kind of like you're coming in from the side and it's kind of this long stretch and there's only like one pillar you can hide behind and he's like on a staircase kind of coming down towards you and he has the high ground and so he's able to just kind of keep chucking shields at you and so you have to like wait and choose your moment for when you're gonna like trying to close in on him. And it's just like when we finally pulled it off and got him, it felt so good. And like
Rob, I wanted to ask you this because I'm curious on your thoughts. You said you didn't like the ritual. I really liked it, so I'm curious. What was your perspective? I mean, did you think it was just too long?
Yeah, I liked the set pieces, and this is where I said like it kind of felt like the Taken King on Coke or something like that, where it's like this had Regicide vibes, which also is kind of a long-ish level. But it's just like you have, like you said, the whole opening encounter where you have to kind of climb the tower in both directions, and then like based on the runes, you have to go through the right door and all that, and then you can smash the crystal, and you have to do that twice, which again is like, yeah, maybe that's not necessary.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then you go to the next encounter, which is you have to damage her, and then like keep climbing a different tower where there's wizards. Yet you have to go through the portals and destroy those, and then you have to like cross the bridge, and then it's like 2 different fight encounters there. And it's like I feel like you could have taken like each one of those things could have been cut in half, because you have to do 2 of those sets of like where you go through the portals and destroy the 3 wizards, and you have to climb the tower twice, and you have to fight her twice, and it's like I feel like each one of those you could only do once, and it would still be just as effective. Kind of to the point where, like, when you finally get to the last encounter, you're almost like, okay, what's the encounter going to be after this? Because you're not even sure if this is the last encounter, which is kind of like, I don't like that feeling. And it is kind of exhausting. And so, yeah, the term I would use is just a little overindulgent, where it's like, I don't think it needed to be that long, but it was still an interesting fight, and had a lot of cool set pieces. I feel like each one went on like way longer than it needed to. But all of it to say it was a cool fight. I will say it kind of felt, and I'm probably someone's gonna call this blasphemy or something. It kind of felt like the final version that you fight Savathun in kind of felt like the Gaul fight at the end of Vanilla D2, where he just cycles through different supers to use against you, and it was like, okay, we've already kind of done this before. And that honestly, it felt like story beats taken from a lot of different like campaigns in history, where it's like the final fight with her kind of felt like the Gaul fight, where she's able to use the light against you and just cycles through a bunch of supers. And then, like, I don't know, it wasn't bad, but overall, I just felt it was a little too long.
I'll be the one who disagrees with you here, because see, I didn't play it in one day. I didn't rush it. We're doing all the side quests as they would come up. You know, we did the whole thing for Finch. We did a bunch of stuff. We're exploring. Sometimes we would take breaks and just literally roam around the map, looking for the darkness rifts and figuring all that stuff out, looking for the mods. And then the second day is when I kind of like finished, let's say, the last third of the campaign and stuff. And it felt better. It felt good. It didn't feel like it dragged too long, because we went back in and there was only that, right? But I also feel like even the part where you have to kill the witches that are like threading the spider web sorry, it just went.
I know what you mean. Yeah, the thread cutter thing.
Is the what's the name of the guy? The Traveler. Sorry. So they're threading this spider web on the Traveler, right, to kind of capture him. And I feel like that was so, like, they were talking about it for so long, and then we actually had to go in and physically, you know, remove the spider web off of him, of these magic wizards. So that made more sense to me that it was there. And yeah, it made the mission longer, but we did it. Like, we actually went in and did it. We didn't just hear about it after finishing the fight with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We actually saw it done. So all those like things that the story was leading to, we actually got to do. And that's why I don't feel like it was like badly elongated, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. I also want to disclose that I tried to complete it the first night, and I was playing with 2 other individuals, one of who is not with us here today. Thanks a lot, Will. And we can talk about this in a little bit too. I think the implementation of how the difficulty was scaled with 3 people was not done properly, because it was insanely difficult, and we wiped probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 times on the final mission. And then I went back and did it the next morning, like on my second try by myself. It was way, 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 way easier, which doesn't make any sense. And I agree with you. I think a lot of my impressions were from the first night, and I was getting like frustrated because we should have been able to do it. And I think part of it was because it was like 3:30 in the morning. We were all tired and probably should have called it quits earlier than that. But it did fascinate me that it was considerably easier to play through any of those missions by yourself versus playing with a group, which I still don't really understand. But
it's pretty interesting.
I just it's one of those things, like, if I go through and play it fresh, I might have a completely different experience. So I'll preface all of this as this is my first impression of all of these things, and I was not a fan with how indulgent some of those kind of boss encounters felt, like how long they felt.
Yeah, I know what you mean. One thing I liked about the ritual fight, though, is just because it is Savathun after all, and that opening, the first phase of that fight is Savathun, and like you fight like a acolyte knight in wizard, right? And
Right.
it felt pretty easy because you could like melt her and like pretty quickly. And she didn't have a lot of health in that first phase, and I was kind of like disappointed at that at first because I was like, that was kind of, easy for Savathun. And then there's like 2 entire separate phases after that.
Right.
I thought it was cool just because in campaign missions it feels often like, for example, like on the topic of Gaul. I mean, Gaul goes down in 3 seconds.
Oh yeah.
So it was nice that like the final boss, especially Savathun being, having all this like lore built up on her shoulders, was really nice to like actually be challenged by this like long and grueling fight with like a significant figure within the story. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, I see what you mean in the sense that at some points it feels like artificially long.
Yeah.
Like duplicating things is like unnecessarily. I see what you mean.
But I will also say they did add checkpoints to the campaign, so you don't actually have to go through it in one sitting. So like all of these things at the end of the day are from the perspective of a hardcore gamer, where like it's, you got to battle or power through it all in one sitting. It's like, no, this campaign is clearly meant to be enjoyed over. I think, Scotty, you did it better where you played it over the span of several nights versus like trying to rush through it in like one sitting. I think it really, like when every time they've said they've had a cinematic story campaign, like this felt like that cinematic story campaign. So
absolutely.
Take your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll get to play more because again, the weekly,
Right.
I'm literally, as we're speaking, I am playing the weekly mission right now to farm for alloys. So we'll play them way more. I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to like play them on the normal classic version and see like how easy it is compared to the grueling experience of Legendary.
Did you play it alone, Scotty, or did you? Play
I did the whole thing solo.
Okay, because I've only played it with 2
right.
people. I've done the second character also with 2 people, and one of the things I liked and I was excited for Legendary, and yeah, I agree that the scaling is probably terrible because I hear it from people, just go and do it on your own because it's so much easier and you get the rewards and you get the exotic and you get the points from the blue gear, which makes sense, if that's what you want to do. Like you said, if you want to power through it, yep, that's probably the way to go. But I do feel, and again, maybe they're not Bungie games at this point, but I haven't played the Halo Infinite campaign because I'm waiting for online co-op to come out, because I've always played every Halo game on Legendary co-op, always. And this was like, it felt like that too, playing with a friend, it being hard, not frustratingly hard, but hard enough that it was a challenge and not just like a breeze in the park, and I enjoyed that. So
yeah.
I liked it too.
In any case, I would feel like the solo should be harder and leave the other ones alone.
You'd think, right?
Yeah. But that's what's interesting is like, so I did the first 2 missions solo, and yeah, it's the first 2 missions, so they're not going to be incredibly difficult. But I was like, okay, like this is cool. Each encounter you had to like, I don't think I wiped at any point. There was definitely some times where I got really, really stinking close. And then Will joined me, and we played like 2 or 3 more missions, just him and I. And that felt like a really good level of like, where we weren't sweating our butts off, but it was definitely like a few of those encounters were like, I think we wiped a couple times. It was like, okay, this is cool. Like, this feels like a Legendary campaign. This is cool. But then as soon as the third person joined, it was like, it almost felt like it was scaled incorrectly. And I've seen a few posts of people kind of commenting on this where it's like, it doesn't feel like enemies are 3 times harder. It feels like they're like 4 or 5 times harder, which doesn't quite make sense, because when you play solo, you can one-shot like a lot of the Thrall with like a hand cannon, but then it felt like I was putting like 4 shots into a single target when 3 of us were playing, and that kind of didn't feel good. And some of the boss encounters felt like they were really, really tedious because of how much health they had.
Yeah, I don't think it was the health that much. I think it was the guns, because since then I've helped a couple people with like a mission here and there that they were stuck on, like with 3 people. So I've only played with 2 people the whole campaign twice, and almost. I just need the last fight. And a couple missions with 3 people. And yeah, 3 people felt harder, but it didn't feel as hard as it did the first time I played it because we didn't have the gear. But now that I have, like, I'm basically like 5 levels under master level, including the artifact. So at this point, I'm like high enough light level that I could play it and I would feel that I would do the damage I was supposed to do, which makes sense in a
Legendary
way.
caps you out though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it caps you out in Legendary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I'm not using weapons I wasn't supposed to. I don't know how to explain.
Yeah, but they
I was
they
using Galley the entire time.
Yeah, 'cause they shower you in upgrade modules. So I was bringing my gear up basically the entire time. And so like it's not like I was using blues. Like I had my Time Lost Fatebringer. I dumped like 2,000 kills into that over the span of like 2 days playing through the campaign. It's ridiculous. So like it felt off. And maybe that's the intent, like, because you do have the luxury of having 3 people. I do like that they have limited revive tokens. Like that felt like a good kind of balancing mechanism.
Yeah, I was glad because there's no like, please carry me, senpai option.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you can't just hide in the corner and let people get you through it.
Yeah, right. And I liked that. I think all of the intents to kind of like balance it and make it feel rewarding and have that challenge and sweating your ass off, like all of that, I think was perfectly mixed in a good way. It was a great kind of day one experience for sure.
So I think my favorite moment, I'll just kick off the story discussion with this. I think my favorite cutscene and the whole thing, my favorite like story moment was that big climax where you reveal the memory of the shard from her prison and she gives that monologue to the traveler and dies. That scene was awesome. And then there's the subsequent thing where she confronts you in the memory fragment altar, and that scene was so cool. I loved her little speech. The anime looked really impressive on, those scenes where they like dump all the budget into them. I think it was like the opening cutscene. It was like that one. It was the worm memory one where Ikora reveals it and it's like the hive lied to her, and et cetera, et cetera. Those scenes looked really nice. I think just one animation, I know nothing about animation, but the way her mouth moves is really cool. Yes. But yeah, from a story perspective, I thought that was a really cool. It wasn't like a completely unexpected twist, but like it felt very satisfying. It made sense. It was cool.
I feel bad.
I thought it was a very cool moment.
That made me feel terrible, man. They were the chosen ones. We were like the second option just because.
And we're technically the third, right? Because the Fallen were also chosen.
We're just hanging on to like something that was never ours. And the Hive are actually, the chosen race or species or whatever. And
is it that they were chosen, or was it were they the first group that maybe showed promise that the Traveler chose?
No, the Traveler was there already in the cutscene, which I agree that cutscene is probably the best looking one. He was there, and then the worm was like, "Oh, Traveler is gonna take these guys. I'm gonna take them to the deep."
Right.
And then they didn't get to be the original, assuming they're the original, because maybe obviously like in Bungie lore, these things go back forever, basically. So. But as far as we know, they were the first chosen ones that didn't get to be chosen because of the worm.
Right.
So,
like the Traveler, I feel like just picks whoever is most convenient to them. He just creates proxy armies so that it can survive. It's only an animal, and its only goal is to care about choosing whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I feel like my theory is I didn't play like the post-game stuff, so I don't know if they answer this question yet, but I thought that why the Traveler revived Savathun was because of Savathun's plan to shield the Traveler away in her throne world. Like the Traveler knew that Savathun was capable of protecting it, and so that's why Savathun was like chosen, just because Savathun was capable of protecting the Traveler from something. That was my thought, and so the Traveler just chooses whoever's most convenient. And I thought that was
well, but I don't think it works like that. The ghosts do it, and then actually there's parts where certain ghosts are like, I don't know what the Traveler is thinking, and they literally say things like that. Like
that's true.
So it's like they went and they revived, like the ghost who got her, right? Like that had the ghost was, let's say, pre-programmed somehow. I see a lot of, I don't know if you guys watch Prometheus from Alien, like the prequel movie. This has so much things from there, like even how the messenger or the whatever his name is, sorry, it even looks like them, and it has so many good. And I'm comparing it to something that I feel like is a good series story-wise, which is Alien. But yeah, I think the ghost kind of pre-programmed to be like, because why won't they res a Cabal if it dies? There's no ghost who's been like, oh, this Cabal seems worthy, I'll res him, right? But they knew that the Hive were worthy at some point or whatever. So maybe this ghost was like, well, here I come. And at that point, I don't think they strictly talked to the Traveler as much as we think they do, because if not, even our ghost would know like what the hell's going on, and he clearly doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, but like a Hive ghost was specifically made for Savathun.
Well, that's one of my like I expected it to be like a normal ghost that approaches her and is like, oh look, I'll rest her, but the fact that he had the Hive shell already was like, yeah. It didn't have to. If it didn't have the Hive shell, it would have made so much of a better scene.
Like it got corrupted and
afterwards. Changed shell or something.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, just like some random ghost shell would have been like more, like you said, coherent.
Like the general white one.
Yeah.
What I'm not clear on is all of the Hive, the Lucent Hive that have the light, that have ghosts. Were those ghosts made by her, or were those other ones that the Traveler like had just lying around?
Well,
I'm gonna say it's from the Traveler.
So they've just like, did they just emerge from the cracked opening in the Traveler, and they all just kind of poured out as soon as she took the light? Like that part,
in the Throne world, ghosts. But the Throne world is like in her mind.
Is he still actively making ghosts, or I thought there's like
the Lucent Hive, by the way, are definitely like in the world. Did you guys play the Battlegrounds thing yet for the seasonal stuff?
Yes.
So like they're like leaking into like the EDZ.
Yeah, they're on the EDZ, which is cool.
So you do like hunt them down, and like they are in the world. So it's not just in Savathun's throne world.
Okay.
Rob, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Well, no, I guess it's I still have this. I'm uncertain, and maybe it's explained in one of the lore books, but like, is there a set number of ghosts that have already been created and that's it? Or is the Traveler still just like periodically pooping out ghosts that are meant to find new guardians?
Well,
and if that's the case, is that what happened with these Hive ghosts? Like he explicitly, the Traveler made them after Savathun was like rezzed, or did Savathun make those ghosts from her powers? Like that I don't understand that part.
Yeah. They did not explain that. I'm hoping that maybe like the evidence board. Have you guys done the evidence board thing?
Yeah, I'm starting doing some of those.
Yeah, missing one.
Okay, I'm hoping there's some like post game explanation there.
I'm sure there's tons of stuff there's lore books that are all in there, and
Yeah, interesting question. And did you guys, speaking of lore books, have you guys been reading the lore books throughout the campaign, the Martian Missives one?
No, I've not read those yet.
You need to read them because they're for some reason extremely integral to like the story of Destiny.
So
there's one in particular that's like, whoa, did you really just drop that in the lore book? Anyways,
what's the revelation?
Do you guys want to know?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Go for it.
No, tell us.
Tell us.
Okay. So, spoilers, by the way, for the Martian Missives lore book, if you haven't read it, for those listening, there's a like message from Keitel in there, and Keitel is like, hey, so we found a like cut up dead body on Nessus, and we identified it as Osiris. And so she's like, that Osiris you have, that comatose Osiris you have in the city, that's not Osiris. I don't know what that is, but that is not Osiris. She's like, maybe it's a bomb or something or whatever that is, but I don't trust that. So I was like, wow, that's something that should have been said in game dialogue. But yeah, that was
maybe season story that we haven't seen. I mean, still we're on week 1, right?
That's true. That's true. Hopefully they reveal more of that. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of a big revelation. So according to Keitel, Osiris is dead.
Osiris is never Osiris. Dude, when we got to that mission and it was like, oh, take the Sagira ghost, I was literally hoping it would be like one of those other RPG games where I get a choice, because I was like, yeah, no, let's just leave this shit here. I don't want it. Just leave it here. We're done with it.
So going back, I have an answer for you for what I think my favorite story mission was. The one, because I was not expecting this, is we got to go back to Europa and go and actually fight inside one of the pyramids against the Cabal.
So cool. Oh, yeah, that was the European pyramid.
I think that was my favorite mission, and I love that, like, things inside just kind of shift and react. And so, like, you're constantly fighting, like, an arena. And I love that the Cabal were there and, like, they've been there for a while. That's all phenomenal. And I think the story, or the seasonal kind of story is really interesting, how it all kind of, like, because, like, the first mission, you start by attacking some of Keitel's troops and she gets, like, pissed, right? And then you kind of come to this understanding and conversation, and there's, like, kind of awkward tension. I don't think you've played it yet, Scotty, probably. But there's, like, a cutscene where you go and talk to, like, Keitel and
I did see that.
You did see that? Okay. Yeah, and then they're like, well, let's just kind of forget what happened and we'll just move on, and let's kind of talk about the more pressing matter at hand. And so it's like, I like that it's not just, oh, we're buddy with the Cabal now. Like, we still keep kind of, like, stepping on each other's toes in ways, and, like, I think that's great. Also, I have to give a shout out to the was it the Dead Messenger quest? Like the new kind of weekly mission that we get from that's kind of in the spirit of Presage or Harbinger.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And spoilers, it's a D1 Mars area, which is amazing. And really, really cool.
Yeah, I was glad I got to play that one with you, because I would have missed out so much of the stuff you guys were talking about.
Yeah, so you haven't done this mission yet, probably, Scotty. But once you do a couple of rounds of the seasonal, the seasonal activity.
Oh, the battlegrounds.
The battlegrounds thing. You unlock this exotic quest to get that waveform rocket or grenade launcher that allows you to change the elemental type on it. So it's basically like hard light, but a grenade launcher waveform. And you basically have to do this mission where you get, like, try not to do too many spoilers, but you basically, in a land take, and you have to, like, take out a bunch of, like, other tanks and things like that. So they've done a bunch of vehicle combat, like, so I understand now why there's all the mods for vehicles that do extra damage to vehicles and things like that. It makes sense because we have missions now where we're regularly doing vehicle combat. But basically the whole thing takes place in the exclusion zone from D1 Mars.
That's so cool.
So a huge portion of it is, like, the opening area. It's huge. And then you then go into this building that we've never gone in before. That's kind of like in that kind of one of the main T junctions, like when you first land on Mars. Like, it's so spectacularly done. And they do that thing where they've taken, like, D1 music and they kind of remix it and make it kind of, like, have that vibe. It's so good. And the mission itself is, like, kind of tense and tough. And there's a revelation about we get some information about our
old buddy.
Yeah, our old buddy. What is his name? The
Callus.
We get some Callus stuff. So I won't give you spoilers.
This is a spoiler episode. I'm sorry. You should, though. We're spoiling people already with the campaign. I think we should be able to talk about spoilers, and probably Scotty's not going to get his feelings hurt.
I'm going to hold it off for Scotty. You can ruin it, Robbie, but I'm not going to ruin it.
No, I will talk about the other one, though. Parasite one. I know you hated it. I loved it. It was my favorite thing, the whole expansion so far. His name was Bob. He was my friend. I will remember him forever. And I'm so sad I lost him. I don't know if you ever played Cyberpunk. There's a gun in Cyberpunk that has an AI on it. And it talks to you, And this little hologram comes to it. And he's like this nasty, sarcastic little gun that kind of hates you. But he helps you, right? Because he has no option. And I felt like this was such a missed opportunity if they would have made the grenade launcher talk to you when you actually had it on later on.
Yeah, but they give him such an annoying, nasally, whiny voice.
It sounded like I don't know if you remember that Dinosaurs TV show. She sounded like the grandma to me.
That's an awful comparison. I mean, I agree with you, but it's like So after you complete the campaign, you get a new quest, an exotic quest to get the parasite grenade launcher, and basically, spoilers, you turn Savathun's worm into the grenade launcher, which is awesome.
Well, this wasn't the worm. This was like an older worm that was already calcified, and we kind of brought it back to life.
Oh, I thought this is the one that you extract from Savathun.
No, this is the one that... But no, this is the one we take from... You know how you go into the depth and it's on a statue and you take it from the statue? Because it's
but that's her worm, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like an old worm. The one that was before with her. Apparently, she's changed worms a couple of times, you know.
No, because I thought the one that Mara extracts at the end of the previous season, because the worm calls her the Deceptive Queen or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. They've been traveling around, going to places so that Mara can figure out something to do, and then she basically brokers this deal and says let's get you back to health, and then I'll let you go inside my body. Which I realize how I phrased that sounds terrible, but that's a sentence. So this worm's like, great, I'm gonna have a new host. And all the while, you're going to all these different locations, and it's like, I'm so happy that I've got health back. You're gonna have to carry me, and it's like, it's so frustratingly annoying. Especially, and I think part of it is because the final mission where you actually have to escort it. Which, by the way, that mission is kind of cool. I like the idea of you have to pick it up. You can't just because you're getting swarmed by enemies, and every the first couple times I wanted to drop it and then just shoot things to clear the space, but it just makes more sense to just keep sprinting. And it's cool because you have kind of an obstacle course where there's spike walls and things that'll kill you, and you have to start over from the beginning, and you have to run through 16 pools. So it's a cool mission, but the whole time he's whiny nasally. He's like, "Hurry up, I'm getting tired," and it's shut up. Because I died a couple of times at the beginning, and that's on me, but I didn't want to keep hearing the same, "Oh, you're gonna have to carry me," over and over again. Really annoyed the hell out of me. I almost turned the sound off. I almost turned the sound off my game, which I've never wanted to do.
Oh,
dang, I can't wait to get to this mission.
All right. So I guess that's going to depend on your mood at the time. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, right. I thought it was hilarious.
But the actual punchline is fantastic because you basically go talk to Finch and he gives you this thing that helps.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but here you go.
Yeah, just sort of it's kind of a plot hole where he's like, "Oh yeah, I mysteriously have this thing. I think it'll help you out. I don't know." And then sure enough, it helps you contain the worm. And then Mara's like, "Yeah, I gave you a host. You're going inside a gun now, bitch." And it's it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's such a...
And he's like, "I'm not going to talk to you again."
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of Finch?
That's a cool, and I love that he's titled as a conscientious objector, and that it's clearly his. It's clearly his hive that's dead behind him that he refuses to
res. He says that too. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not resing him." This guy. He talks about him when you pick up bounties. Because I've done
hangs out next to his dead body.
I think I've done 150 repeatables, and the lines on him are amazing.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Oh, I love Finch. Finch is great.
Finch is great. Oh, and then I love that when you do bounties around the or patrol missions, that a lot of them are given by was it Amaru, which is Savathun's ghost?
Yep.
Oh.
And so he's talking crap about Guardians and stuff like that, and it's totally funny, and he's like, "You're gonna have to work your butts off for this," and stuff like that. It's cheesy dialogue that every time I hear it, I'm like, did they really just say your butts off in this? Yeah. It's fantastic. It's so good.
Speaking of cheesy dialogue, one of my favorite lines was in that Keitel meeting, and Zavala's showing Keitel the hologram of the Lucent Hive, and
right.
Keitel's like, "Oh, you want my help?" And then Saladin's like, "Want is a strong word." And then Keitel's like, "You need my help." And I thought that was a cool line. It was just fun cheesy moments like that are always cool. Yeah,
where it's this is not a time to have pride. The Vanguard and like the kind of the surviving like representative members of the city, which is cool. All the cutscenes had like Anna Bray there and Saladin and Shaq. It's like right, and everyone who needs to be a part of this conversation is there. And yeah, you still have like Lord Saladin, who's got this like chip on his shoulder about the Cabal, and it's like, dude, we are way past that. Like we have Hive that can wield the light. Like we need to get over it. Like I was kind of hoping what's his name was going to be there. Not Aramis, the fallen captain who
Mithrax.
Yeah, I was hoping Mithrax would be there too. Of like, yeah, we can't believe this is what's going on. Like, I hope that their involvement is going to be felt at some point as well.
Yeah, because like he's the one who like treats the light as a religion. I mean, he would be the most upset about that.
Yeah, especially the revelation that
they were before.
The Traveler resurrected Savathun. Yeah.
Oh man, I hope there's a season with
well, they know about
like
the fall, right? Like we're expecting, like that's the whole thing. We don't know if the Traveler is going to abandon us now.
Right.
And they already went through that.
I think so.
So
yeah, like they're going to have to be our therapists to help us cope with the idea of like we're going to have our great whirlwind, just like they had theirs. Yeah,
we will. The only reason we didn't have ours was because Rasputin crippled it.
I thought that's been debunked.
Was it debunked?
I don't know. I think it's like depending on how you interpret. I could be wrong, but I know there's like a hot back and forth on whether or not that whole like exigent protocol thing or whatever was actually him bombing the Traveler or not.
It makes sense. I mean, I'm on board with the conspiracy theory.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like, I bet Rasputin figured out a long time ago that not everything is as it seems, and that the Traveler has done this in the past. Now it seems like now we have evidence that it's happened twice.
At least.
That it could happen again. And so, yeah, I also, can we talk about, like Robbie, you casually brought this up. We got to see.
I was about to mention the same thing.
We got the first appearance of the Darkness.
We got to talk about that.
And he had a smoky, billowy face, smoke head, which was kind of awesome and weird, and not necessarily what I was expecting, but I'm not disappointed either.
Okay, I'll just tell me this. Arousing or not arousing? That's all I need to know.
Okay,
perfect.
A little bit. No.
See, that's the point.
Okay, I thought he was scary and super intimidating and awesome looking. I was like, this is awesome. And then he turned around and I felt like it was a DreamWorks movie. And I was like,
yeah, it kind of looked like Megamind without the
everybody said that to me. I've never watched those movies, but everybody mentioned that. Yes.
You need to watch
them either, but I've watched them.
Oh my gosh, you guys both haven't seen Megamind? The greatest DreamWorks movie ever made.
I'm a Pixar fan, man. I'm sorry.
I almost really wish that it like didn't have a face or something like that.
Me too. That's what I was thinking. It should not have a face.
No,
it looked oddly humanistic too, which is kind of like I don't and maybe that's going to be like the reveal is like
it's the whole Forerunner thing again. It's right. I don't know if you guys played the Halo campaigns from back in the day, but it was like we were fighting literally the how were they called? Like all these
the prophets
species put together because they wanted the rings, right?
The Covenant.
The Covenant is basically like an alliance of different species looking for this crazy thing, right? So this is kind of what we're doing now and what was there before, and then we realize like, oh, we're just like little pawns from some like higher species thing, and
right.
And I feel like this is that moment, and it's good because that happened there, and I feel like it's happening now. Like again, I'm just gonna go back to that. Like it has a lot of fan service, yes. It has a lot of good moves. It's like doing things that were in the game before, but doing them better. Even with Finch, like all the reactions I'm getting from people about Finch and stuff is like he's Cade now for people. You know, people love him.
Yeah.
And all those funny things, and like you said, not taking it too seriously, but then at the same time super serious. It's all there. It's great. Yeah, it's a good resurrection, I think, of the story. In the terms of moving forward, like it opens up so much and finally closes some of those veils of like, oh, Savathun was always the thing, and now like now it's not. So let's go and find out.
Hot take: I would still possibly make a case that Forsaken has a better story or more affecting story than Witch Queen. I know that's probably controversial, but
I think here's the thing. I've been trying to think about this more and more and not try to bias myself. Obviously, we're still in kind of like, I'll call it a honeymoon period because this just came out and it's new content and
Yeah,
it's exciting. Like, so, and it might be one of those things where we need to have this conversation again in 3 months and maybe we'll feel differently. But I feel like you have obviously the opening mission of Forsaken, which is fantastic, right?
it's the best Destiny mission in period.
That might be the best opening mission ever to any.
It's the best Destiny mission ever. Like from a story, like
but it has so much stuff behind it. See, that's the difference with this one, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you guys. Like that was like an ending to thing, and someone you cared for a lot died. On this one, it's not an ending to like this feels like a beginning mission. You know, you start from zero, not knowing anything about many things. So and whoever dies is like someone we were trying to kill for a long time, not someone you cared about. So you don't have like all these kind of feelings. So that I agree that the Forsaken campaign is more like it hits you because you're attached to it already, and this one is like it opens up instead of closing down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it could have been more. I wish there was more. I mean, one of my problems is just I wish there was more like Ikora and Eris dialogue and stuff like that. I feel like Ghost takes a lot of the dialogue.
No more Ikora, please. Did you see her just pop like a void super and then an arc super, and then she was in the arc super for like 5 minutes, and it's like, what? I don't trust her, dude, at all. Like I really don't trust her. No. The only other person I've seen that pops supers like that now is Sabaton, so I don't trust Ikora. She's on my hit list.
I think there's also like, okay, so going back, like Forsaken has a really, really strong opening first mission, right? There's no debating that. Although I will say, I think I still like the Taken King opening mission on Phobos, because you're just like, hey, we're answering this distress call, and then it's just like it slowly goes from bad to worse. And I think the reveal of Oryx and just sort of like and even Eris is like freaked out and having like a panic attack, and the fingertips on the surface of my mind or whatever, those, and like you also have the Cabal in the elevator dying, which is fantastic. But like, okay, so the opening mission in Forsaken is fantastic, no debating that. But then I would say the middle part of Forsaken kind of lulls a little bit, where you're killing off each of the Scorn Barons, and like that's cool, and each one's different enough feeling that it's interesting. But once you get then into the Dreaming City and you get this like big grandiose reveal, it like picks up again. Whereas I feel like this had a good steady throughput the entire time. So like I think the higher highs in Forsaken outweigh the highs in this, but I think this has a better average throughout the entire campaign, if that makes sense.
I'll agree with you. Yeah. Because I actually finished Forsaken like the week before this week. And I played half of it, and I actually stopped at some point because I missed like some chest with some emblem, and I figured it out. I got it on the open world, whatever. But then I had to finish the campaign at least once before it went away, right? And the beginning is amazing, but the whole part of like hunting down the other guys,
the Barons, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but it just that was so boring to me.
You're right.
No, but they're fun in the fact that each one has like there's like the rider, and then there's the junkyard one where you have to like drive the tank through. And
but these tanks on like, this one were way better than the tank on that one.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
I think one thing Forsaken does really well, I mean, aside from the Baron thing, because of course that does get a little monotonous, is I think they use cutscenes like in between missions, which was cool.
Yes.
I thought that was, I wish that there was stuff like that in Witch Queen. And I think Ghost takes more of a backseat. I think Ghost has too much dialogue in Witch Queen.
I would agree with that.
I wanted to hear, because like in Forsaken, you hear dialogue from, like Petra and Spider and stuff like that and whatnot. And Ghost just, there's so many people like I would rather hear talk than Ghost in Witch Queen. Like so many people have a vested interest in the Savathûn conflict. I don't want to hear Ghost like spout exposition or ask questions anymore. Like I want to hear like how Eris is feeling about this or something like that. You know what I mean?
I would have loved it if like in Beyond Light, when the ghost starts kind of like, hey, I don't like the idea that you're indulging in playing around with darkness, right? I kind of would have liked it if he's like, hey, I'm not totally cool with you smashing ghosts left and right, by the way. You know, like
right?
almost kind of like saying like, hey, are we good still? Like, you know.
Yeah, the only thing he says.
I agree. There could have been more dialogue from other folks.
He just says, and that's because literally, while we've been recording this, I finally got an alloy, by the way, on like the 4th run. But I've been playing the weekly mission, which is that one when you killed the ghost for the first time. And the only thing he says is like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Right.
And
But
I didn't
cool.
either.
It was like
now I like it. I
frequent.
love it. I love crushing those things. But at the first time, felt it hit. Yeah.
Sad. Yeah, it did. It did. You good because you crushed it, and then you look at your hand, and you're like, oh, "Shit, what did I just do?"
Yeah.
So, anyways, guys, I could talk about this all day, and we have so much to get into. All we talked about was the campaign. We've got, and a little bit we touched on the exotic quests and stuff, but we have so much to talk about in the coming weeks. So please, thank you guys for watching, and please come back next week. We'll be talking all about the Witch Queen and further developments week to week. So thank you guys for coming on and talking with me. Thank you guys out there for listening. And we'll see you guys all later.
And remember, Bob, he was my friend. Ciao.
You can put this voice recording away and go on with your life, because you and I both know you'd have me yapping in your ear for the rest of your days.
Want to further the discussion? Get in touch with us at any of our Twitter handles, all of which can be found at our podcast description.